All right, so I need to get this out there. I need to just give my testimony um, to everybody, anybody who can hear it. I just want to tell whoever wants to listen my story. Um, I'm gonna start off. Um, I grew up in a strict Mormon house. When I was 8 years old, I was gonna get baptized for the Mormon religion. I remember thinking this was my day and being really excited. I was sitting in a big chair and I was dressed in a white dress and white tights and white shoes, and I remember swinging my feet and was so happy. And um, then all these other kids came in, and oh, it just ruined my day. I was like, I thought, why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? And the first time I remember God clearly speaking to me was that day. He said, I heard a voice and it said, "You're doing this for your parents," and I accepted that answer. I I understood the Ten Commandments and the commandment that you should honor your father and mother, and I thought as a child that honoring my parents was accepting their beliefs. And now I know that that's not true. That's not honoring your parents. Not accept. You don't have to accept your parents' beliefs in order to honor them. But to this day, my parents think like that. Um, so those are issues that we're going through. Um, so I became Mormon for them, and I was fine with it. And as Mormon, um, they have these Mormon temples, and they train their children to marry a Mormon mate in this Mormon temple. So I was set up with this perfect Mormon boy. We met on a vacation. My dad took us to Illinois to see Carthage Jail, where Joseph Smith, the leader, founder of this religious group, where he died. And while we're there, I met this Mormon boy. Um, and the similarities between my family and his family were very similar. Like I saw my parents' marriage, like how like if we connected, me and this guy got together, it would be like how my parents were, because I'm from a family of six, and um, he was from a family of seven. Same with my mom. My mom's from a family of six. My dad's from a family of seven, and my grandparents on either side were Mormon, and his family for the longest time has been Mormon. And so even though we got on great, um, I didn't I didn't envy this parallelism or similarities that I saw, because I never envied my my parents' relationship. Um, I guess one time I came across some love letters that my dad wrote my mom, and I thought those were really tender and cute, but they they never impressed me as a married couple. I'm a very passionate woman, and I want a passionate love, and I want that a passionate spouse. And they just seemed like their love died. If they had a love, that it died, and I never wanted that. I never envied that. And my mom was always sick in bed with a migraine, and my dad was is always working and always complaining about working so hard. I don't want that. That's not something I want in a relationship. I want to always, like, I love my work. I'm always working, and um, I think that's how it should be in life. That your work should be your life, and it should be fun and enjoyable. Otherwise, otherwise you're not living. You're just dying. So uh, was aged, trained to marry a Mormon spouse, and even though I was set up to marry this um, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, perfect Mormon boy, um, it didn't work out. He went on this Mormon mission because they put aside 2 years. The men are encouraged to put aside 2 years um, to serve. What do they say? Serve the Lord and go share their beliefs with wherever they put them. Well, before he goes, he gifted me this crystal temple, like this little crystal temple of Mount Timpanogos Temple, where he had a grandfather there that was sealer, and that's where we were gonna go get sealed for time and all eternity. Well, um, I had this little crystal temple on this little altar thing, and I accidentally bumped it, and it smashed to a million pieces. And initially, I thought, oh, I could get another one or put this back together, but I had this peace come over me, and I just felt that this was a sign and that I wasn't going to marry Barrett. I was I wasn't gonna get sealed to him, and um, so I accept that, and I started dating around, and started. I went on this like a group date, and there was this guy named Brian in this group, and we kind of got secluded and um, watched a movie, and he ended up talking to me, and um, I wasn't, I didn't fall in love with him. I didn't fall in love with him. I just, I pitied him. I wanted to help him, but I didn't. I wanted to run away from him, and at the same time, I was like wanting to help him, but I was actually relieved to tell him. Like a week later, I told him, actually, I'm going to school to Utah, and I was thinking I was getting away from him, and I was like relieved. I thought this was a way out, and but I moved to Utah, and um, I was placed in my grandfather's home. My grandfather Jack, my dad's dad, and my grandmother, his wife had recently passed, and he had wanted me to replace her. He wanted me to be making the meals and cleaning the home, and he wouldn't knock and just barge in. And I was, going to college. I was like, this isn't acceptable. I didn't want to be there. And Brian had moved out. He followed me to Utah. Um, he followed me to Utah, and he helped me get a place closer to him, closer to my school. And I didn't sleep with him for months, but when I did, I got pregnant right away. And after after that, I really felt stuck with this guy because um, marriage, like they hold, they think they hold such an ideal to marriage, and but they put a really like a huge burden. Like my parents will say that they told me I didn't have to marry him. I don't I don't remember this at all. I just remember calling my dad, and all he said was you should read the book The Miracle of Forgiveness, which is one of their stupid Mormon books, and it's not no every uh, how everything went down is just I was I grew how I was before was I was really naive and timid and really super shy and very confused. It was like they put Bambi in the jungle. I was like Bambi in the jungle. Um, so I got pregnant and um, had um, got married to him. It was in my aunt's house, and it was awful. I was too pregnant, and The guy, the um, they don't call him pastors. It was a bishop who married us, and he talked way too long, standing on my feet, and I'm like pregnant. It was just awful, and my mom wanted us to hang out after and open all the presents. I was so tired. She got mad at me for putting them all in the car, and she was making me cry. I was exhausted. I wanted to go home and not do things how she wanted me to do them. It's supposed to be my wedding. Um, um, and then so this guy would always like confess his sins to me and tell me weird things that he did. And a week after we were married, he tells me about a homosexual lifestyle that he previously had and having gay sex with his best friend from childhood. And I was really, really, really devastated. This is something that should have been mentioned to me before, not after being married. Um, and plus, I my parents are really against homosexuality, which I understand, and I'm also not in favor of homosexuality. I'm very against homosexuality. I'm not attracted sexually to women, and I think men being attracted to men is gross and unnatural. It's very unnatural. You can't ever naturally produce children that way, and so it doesn't produce a true love. It doesn't produce more love. It's a disgrace to humanity, and it's not the person. I understand it's the sin that's disgusting, not the person. People can come to Christ and be saved from that, but as a woman, it's not my job to save a man. It's Jesus Christ's job to save a man, and I didn't know that at this time. So, and it's taken me until recently to realize that I will never save a man. Only Jesus Christ will ever save a man or a woman. And so, um, back to my testimony. My my first husband, Brian. Okay, so a week after he tells me that, and I call my mom, and I couldn't tell her. I couldn't tell her what exactly the reason why. I was just bawling and telling her I married the wrong I married the wrong man. That I married the wrong man. That's what I told her. I was just crying and telling her I married the wrong man. And she tells me, well, you made your bed, you lie in it. And so he comes home and um, he picked me up and carried me to the bedroom, and I just let him do me, and that was that was it. I um, laid in that bed for almost 7 years. Um, had 4 children with him, 3 daughters and then a son. And um, the the year 2007 is when I got out of that relationship. And I got out of that relationship that year. I hadn't had a cell phone or a phone or a computer. And with the taxes that we got that year, I told him that that we were going to get those things, a phone and a computer. And he got those. And my sister Natalie came over and set up MySpace for me. And I really enjoyed that, like uploading the pictures and um, reconnecting with old friends. And um, I was sweeping the floor, and I had this thought of um, his name was Roy, this date that we went on, and I was like, oh yeah, that was a fun time. And right after I had that thought, he comes up on my MySpace and he was like, hey. And so I was like, that was weird. I was just thinking about you. And um, and I was able to, for some reason, just tell him everything. I couldn't, I had no one else to talk to. I couldn't trust anyone with all the things that I knew and the things that I experienced in that marriage. And I didn't, I didn't think I should tell anybody else. I thought it was meant, those secrets were meant to stay within my marriage, and that's what I was supposed to do, was just to put up with that. And so I was telling him all these things, and I was so naive, really honestly, sincerely naive, and I was like, tell me, tell me what I'm doing wrong, and like what can I do to keep his attention, and what's I don't know what's going on. Like seriously, I really wanted to help my marriage. I thought it was because I was doing something wrong. I was like Mormon wife of the century. I had 4 kids. I looked amazing. I did the meals and kept house, and I was like, I don't know what more could I be doing. And um, Roy, Roy was like, it's not you, it's him. He's weird. And I really needed somebody to tell me that, and somebody I trust to tell me that. Well, one of the things that I told him was something that happened when my oldest daughter Haley was 3, and so um, so it was years before, like 3 or 4 years previous, and Haley Haley said that her pee hurt, and so I said, well, can I look at it? And she says yes. So I pull down her panties, and I see that there's blood and discharge in her underwear, and I have never ever seen that before in a 3-year old. And at the time, well, I freaks out, and at the time, looking back, I should have taken it to my parents because we were living in their basement at the time, and um, but I didn't. I never even thought, it never occurred to me that my husband would be capable of this, even though he had told me about all his other perversions. People, if you let in one perversion, you let in all perversions. One perversion opens the door to all perversions. But I had no clue about this. I was super, super, super naive, super, super ignorant. And um, I called him, and he came home from work, and he was like, oh no, we should just, I was like, what do we do? And he's like, we should take her to the doctors. And so I was like, okay. And he was like, well, in the morning, because it was like the middle of the night. And so I was like, all right. We didn't go to like an emergency room. We went to like her normal children's doctor. Like I called them first thing in the morning, and they said, come in. And then um, they said, when we got there, they're like, well, you're going to have to set up an appointment with Primary Children's Hospital because they have instruments designed to see if anything, to see like, if anything happened. And so I went to that, and Haley refused to open her legs, and so it um, it was just everything got shoved under the rug. Like my parents would they tried dropping hints about this. This is another thing that's bizarre to me. Like my mom, when she was changing their diapers, she said one time, she was like, their vaginas look too large. And I was like, why would she say something like that? Like, it was just seemed too random, and it wasn't, they weren't ever specific, like, um, this, your husband, we believe your husband is doing this. And even now, looking back, I'm like, if I was a man, and I hear men's reactions are, they say, I would have killed him, and I thought that too. Like, if I was a man, I would have, like, physically hurt him to the point of him dying if I had known that, especially like if I was a man. Like now, I'm just like I would do it now, but as a man, as a real man, like that's I was like that seems more like a natural manly reaction. Um, so but no, they didn't. My father and my brothers, my father was like, "Oh, I just pray. I just was always praying over them, and I just don't, I just don't believe that's sufficient when you just don't let evil overcome. You just don't submit to evil." So, and I even had this, oh, this is the second time I remember God hearing, or hearing God's voice clearly was, um, I just remember thinking I had to ask him. Oh, the other thing that happened was my dad was like, oh, we found child porn on the computer. And Brian, that's my first husband, Brian was like, he was like, oh, he told me that he had to look up something for school and a bunch of child porn popped up. And so he like already explained that to me. So that was like explained away in my mind. But my, now I know that even have child porn on a computer, it can put a person in jail. So why wasn't that brought up to DCSF is beyond me. My brothers were living in the house at the time. Does is it because there was multiple guys living there that they didn't bring it up? I don't know why it wasn't brought up, or if it was, why nothing was done about it. Um, so I'm just everything I'm telling you is just everything that I know, everything that I've either felt or experienced or saw. And so I had this overwhelming feeling that I had to ask him if he had touched our daughter inappropriately. And I remember just before I was going to walk through the door to go to the living room to sit on the sofa where he was and ask him this, I stopped. I was really, 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 really scared. This was really scary for me. And who asks their husband this, that's insanity. Um, and I stopped abruptly and I just panicked and I thought, how do I know if he's lying? And the second time I remember God talking to me so clearly was he said, if he answers you with a question, then he is lying. And so I was like, all right, I got this. And so I went and I sat down and I asked him if he had done this to our daughter, if he had done something evil to our daughter. And he looks me in the eyes and he says, what do you think, Nikki? And I know he answered with a question, and so I just started shaking and crying, and he was hugging me, probably thinking that he had gotten away with it. And I was like, what do I do now? And all I understood about Jesus was forgive, forgive, forgive. He says forgive 7 times 70. But forgiving isn't isn't seeking justice. That's not seeking justice for evil. That's not overcoming evil with good. That's not forgiveness. That doesn't mean just to not pursue justice, to not put away evil. And I didn't understand that. And so I like DCSF and my parents, we just kind of put this under the rug. We just forgot about it. And and I was thinking if something ever, ever, ever happened again, he was without a doubt guilty. Well, that that year 2007, when I was out, as I was getting out, it was towards the end of the year, I was getting out of that relationship. So when Roy told me that it was, so I told that to him too. That was one of the things that I told him, and he was, I was like, it's not you, it's him. He's weird, and I took that. I needed to hear that because I really thought it was me. I really thought, I had kids with this guy. I should stick this out. I'm a loyal person. I think most people are loyal, and they stay with a person because they're genuinely loyal. But that's not a reason to stay with a person either. And so I always been a prayerful person. And this is when I remember first my my meditations with God is my favorite meditations with God are is like being in water, being in a bath or a shower. I'll just even sitting down in a shower, just letting hot water come on me, and I can just release all my feelings, like cryings or all my feelings, all my groanings, as it says in the Bible. Um, I can just empty myself, and then I can wait, and God fills me with His answer so clearly. And as I was, releasing all these feelings, um, I had this thought to ask if I could get a divorce from my first husband, and I never even thought like I could ask this. I never thought that it's something um, that I, I could even. It was like impossible for me to ever get away from him. But the peace that I felt was too tremendous, and it felt like a mountain was lifted off my shoulders. And I went again, super, super scared, really, really, really scared to ask him for a divorce. And he was sitting on the edge of the bed, and I was just stood in front of him, and I was like, I really need to talk to you. And he was like, yeah, what's going on? And I was like, we need to get divorced. I need a divorce. And he bawled like a baby, like he did. He was always manipulating me with his tears, and but the more he cried, the more pissed I got at him being such a coward. Um, he bawled for an hour. He bawled everywhere, like for an hour, just mourning, and like upstairs, downstairs, the living room, the kitchen. Finally, he was like sitting at the kitchen table, and he just stops abruptly, and he was like looks at me, and I'm just waiting for him to finish sitting on the sofa, and I'm just like um I was refusing to give in. I was not gonna pity him anymore, and the longer he cried, the angrier I got. I was like, why is he crying? I want to punch him more in the face or something. But um he was like, okay. He looks at me, he's like, all right, I'm gonna let you do what you want to do. And he was gone. Like the next day, he was out of our lives. And so I went, I was in Colorado visiting Roy, and my kids were in California visiting my parents. And I went to California after I was in Colorado, I went to California, and my dad picks me up. I think this is like about 2008, like the beginning of the new year. And or it was about Christmas time, it was somewhere around then. But as soon as I got in the car, I knew I knew that something else had happened and that it was specifically with my second daughter Katie. And I was right. I don't know how I knew that right before, but I just knew. It was like God told me, like it was like a split second right before my dad even mentioned anything, and I was just like, I knew. And he told me, and I was like, I already knew. I just knew like right then, not like before, just like right now. And he said that Katie was in the bathroom with my brother Chad. So I'm the oldest of six. It was me, my two twin sisters, and then Chad, Hutch, and Preston. And so Chad is the older of the boys, and he was this is a solid kid. He is like trustworthy guy. He was just like straight as an arrow. He is honest, hardworking man, family man. All my brothers are. And he was brushing his teeth, and he says, "All right, Katie." They were talking. He's like, "All right, Katie, I need to go to the bathroom. You need to get out." And she goes to the toilet and lifts up the lid and pretends she's holding a penis and says, "This is how you go, right?" And he says that all he ever said was, "How do you know that?" Or "What else?" He said is all I ever said. I never asked any questions or asked anything leading. That's all I said was, "What else?" Or "How do you know that?" And she went on to tell him gross, disgusting things that her dad did to her, and um, very specific things. And so this was the beginning of my hell with the Utah system. I think the Utah system is the worst in the whole country. The so that that and then 2 weeks after 2 weeks after Katie came out and said things, my cousin Jessica, who had lived just a few blocks away from us at the time in Utah, she had two kids at the time, and her oldest Morgan and her son Owen also came out and said things. Not only did they, Morgan and Owen, talk and give their testimonies to the police, but Morgan was also born with a closed vagina. And the doctors had told my cousin Jessica that it was so severe that when she was 12 or 13, she would have to go in and have it surgically opened. Well, her vagina was found opened. The Sandy Police Department detective told me that that he believed Brian's stories until he failed the lie detector test. And then he told me that, um, after they had gathered all their things, he told me that because Katie didn't tell her testimony to the police, that there wasn't sufficient evidence to prosecute Brian. Well, so everything just got pushed away again. Everything got pushed under a rug again. No justice was pursued, and 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 this is devastated our lives. What what happens next? So he went out of our lives. He moved. I think he's in Oregon somewhere. Um, I finished my degree, my associate's degree in Utah. I went out to California and lived there with my parents and my four kids for 3 months and was dating Roy on like online dating or Skyping or on the phone with Roy, and we had plans to get married. So I went and we just went like had a little courthouse wedding, signed the certificate, and then we went on a honeymoon to Yellowstone, which was awful. It was beautiful, but it was um, it was like just awful. The things I suffered. Um, and then I went back to California, and the plan was that he was going to come get us and bring out his family. Well, he tells me he can't do it, and so my dad was like, "Well, he married you," and he was like, you should just pack up the kids and go." So I did, and for a month tried to, again, just make this work. I was like, "You said I do." um, um, it's like up and down, just just couldn't handle, said he couldn't handle like what had happened with the kids, and couldn't handle the four kids, and was getting back with his ex fiance, and just just a horrible mess. And so I f- tried to do that for a month, and I couldn't take it no more. And a family friend gave me some gas money, and I went out to Utah. So I was in Colorado. I went to Utah, where my parents had moved in between. So they went. My parents are all over. From we started in Colorado. Actually, I started in Wisconsin, Colorado, Utah, California. Now we're back in Utah, and they my van broke down, so my brother Chad came in, rescued us, and just like hours before their home, my van broke down, and I was I had no car, no job. I was just devastated. But so we got me a minivan, and I started going back. Oh, I got a job working housekeeping at the hospital, and then plus I was going back to school. I was going to finish my bachelor's, and um, I was dead tired, so dead tired. Women should not be taking on the responsibilities of a man and a woman. It's too stressful. I would just I was working overnights, and my mom refused to help me during the day with the kids, and so I just had them like jump on me and run around because I was so dead tired. Well, in front of all my kids, she was like, "It's no wonder why your first husband molested your kids. Look how you are as a mother." And um, she's never been a single mom. She doesn't know what that's like whatsoever. My mom and I have we've never been close. Just, um, I've just always felt like a burden to my family, and so, um, we were just never close. The Mormon thing always was awkward. I didn't want to be Mormon. It made things awkward for me as a teenager. Um, and so I told this to a counselor, to a woman, a woman's, a woman counselor who helped me. get into my own apartment on campus, and helped me get some scholarships. And I'm really grateful for that. And that was a really, really fun and memorable time in my life, and a time I remember being stress free. And um, and I had pushed away God and religions at this time, and I was um, living really, really worldly. Just I would do whatever I want, um, and had a really prideful attitude. Um, just super rebellious, like I was since I was a teenager. But I think it was, I think it got worse just before Jesus saved me. Um, and this is when I met my third husband. So I was hanging out with my best friend Felicia and my best friend Jen, and we were we met. We went out dancing, and that's where I met my third husband. And he's black. He's from Ivory Coast, Africa, and so he's good looking, and he was a good dancer, and he's the only good looking guy there actually. And so I I also grew up in a really racist home, so dating a black guy was scary for me, but I was like, I'll give him a chance. So I gave him my number, and so I, he came home with me, and I wasn't I was still like unsure about him, but so my son was all my kids were in bed except for my son. He was up, and he wasn't supposed to be up, but some reason he was up, and um, he's always been like super protective of me. Like he saw what I went through with Roy, and he's just like would cling to me, and he would never like if there's any guy friends that came around me, he'd be like hold on to me and like give him the death stare. He'd be like, "This is my mom. Leave her alone. She's mine. You're not allowed to hurt her." He's like super cute like that. Um, but with Ailey, that's his name, is Ailey. Ailey walked in, and Nathan just ran right to him, and they started playing, and I was just like, that's weird. Um, and then so Ailey and I slept together right away because that's how I was living, and I was like not impressed with the sex. It was just bad, really bad. But I didn't want to judge him, as a person on that. So I just let it go. But so Felicia and I had a falling out, and then Ailey and I had a falling in. She was going through a divorce with her African husband, and then I was getting with my African husband. Um, and um, I fell in love with him, his person, and he was really chill and relaxed, and he could sleep through the kids screaming. He said that that's how it is at back home, and the kids are always screaming and laughing and playing, and that's how you're in a safe place. And um, I remember like wanting to like share that joy of raising children together and with somebody. And the Nathan, my son, my fourth child, was looking in the mirror and then ducking down and then going up and like looking at himself. And I didn't see this, but Ailey did, and he was like, "Hey," and I was just like, "Oh, that's so cute." So there's like these little tender things that it's like, okay, I like him as a person, I love him as a person, but like trying to make us work is like, again, like I was trying to like make make it work, like make a puzzle piece fit together. And um, was wasn't believing in God at the time. I was believing in evolution, even though now I know that microevolution, it follows scientific law. You can observe it happening. You can come up with a hypothesis, observe if it's true or false, and then classify that hypothesis as true or false. That's microevolution. Things microly evolve. That is fact. We microly evolve as humans, and animals microly evolve. Plants, everything that's living microly evolves. What is not true, what is not fact, but science takes it as fact, is macroevolution. Macroevolution cannot be observed. No person has ever observed a species jumping from one species to another. It can't ever happen. But science still promotes this as truth and fact, and that's actually what they teach in all their universities. And I was studying pre-med at the time. I was going to be a doctor. Me and Felicia were going to be doctors. Um, and so we studied all our classes together. And she had already taken evolution, and I had already helped her. I was like going over, and plus like you have to go over some of it in biology, and I was hating it, just absolutely hating it. I read other things like I think it's called the black box or something like that, and how the people, how Darwin's crew, he had a crew, take human skull tops and monkey jaws, and they would file and sand them to match. So that's how they come up with their like Neanderthal and their primate, early primate or early human, skulls. And the people in the crew said this is the greatest hoax the world will ever know. And and we had a girlfriend, me and Felicia. Well, Felicia had a friend. She later became my friend, but her name was Hillary, and she invited Felicia to this Easter thing, and I kind of invited myself. I was like, why would she invite her and not me? So I was like, I'm gonna go. And so I went to this a born again Christian church in Logan, Utah, and um, the pastor has every sermon he has the people recite the a sinner's prayer, and I remember thinking, yeah, I'm gonna say this, but you know nothing's gonna happen, and something happens. God knows our hearts. God is good. Um, I Ailey kept saying, that he loved Jesus, and so he would be. I was like, be like, what do you believe? And like explain the evolution. I was like, I believe in evolution, and he was like, well, explain it to me. And I'm like, well, I couldn't, and I was like, well, how can you say you love Jesus? Like, you're you're living in sin. You're living with me. Like, I didn't know the Bible that good, but I pretty much, thought that, it said somewhere in there that that was a no-no. um, I was like, so you're not an example to me of what it's like to be a Christian. And he was like, well, I just know I just love Jesus. And so, um, for this reason, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that that we met. I had to go through these things, but still, no woman should put up with any form of abuse, which that's what came from being in this relationship. So, I he said you should read the Bible. Just read the Bible. And so I tried. I tried to read the Bible, and I couldn't. I would get really, really mad, really angry, really frustrated because it was like reading a foreign language. I didn't understand it. And so, but I went back to praying, to going into like a meditation and um, praying to a higher power. And I wanted God to reveal himself if he really existed. And I had my experience with God, and I was still confused about this Jesus character. I was like, if he's real, I need to know. I need you to show me how he's real, or something. I need to know. And so I was watching the Saw series, and I'm watching this, and I'm just like so disgusted. I'm like, people are so gross. We're just a bunch of sickos. But I was like, we're a bunch of sickos. I was like, I'm a person too. This is like a huge epiphany for me. I was like even how the Germans, the Nazis did what they did to the Jews. I was like, humanity did that to itself. People did that to people. Humanity did that to its own humanity. So I was like, you can't exclude yourself from humanity because you're a person. So either you are also as disgusting and sick, like I thought I was because I was even watching it. I was like, I'm just as disgusting as the creators of it because I'm sitting here watching it. And um, um, so I was like, had this huge epiphany, and I was like, oh my God, we need a savior. And he was like, I gave you Jesus Christ. And I was like, ah. So that's when I really took Jesus and ran with him. Um, um, and so that's when I told Ailey, I was like, look here, mister, either you need to marry me or get out. And he was like, because I was like, I did read that Bible and it did say you shouldn't be living with me. And he was like, all right, well, we're going to get married. And so we had a little morning ceremony, and my parents weren't invited because as soon as I told them I came to Jesus, or Jesus found me, my mom and dad said I was deceived and of the devil, and that caused like a really huge, 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 like, if there was a separation before, this was like even even larger. And um, so we had this little morning ceremony, and my parents weren't invited. It's just simple. It wasn't the wedding of my dreams, but it was it was sufficient. It was cute, and there was just some church friends, some close friends, and my kids, um, and that was it. And then I thought that was gonna make things better, but really it made things way worse. That's when things started getting really violent between me and Ailey, and um, I thought it would be fixed because I got pregnant with my fifth child not not too long after. Like, I finished my bachelor's degree. He got us into a house, and um, I finished my degree. The day after I finished my classes, David Justice was born, and um, that that boy brought a lot of joy into our lives, and I thought things were going to be good because of all that joy that that child brought into our lives. But it didn't make our relationship it didn't make our relationship better. Um, and we're, so what were we, what was it? I just thought we should be like a Christian example, and we weren't. Um, the the this is really this is so embarrassing to me, but it's it needs to be told. So it's I was trying to seduce Ailey. I was trying to seduce my husband, and I was sitting on his lap, and he shoved me off his lap, and I got really angry at him for denying his wife, me, his wife, his beautiful wife. You mentioned never, ever, 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 ever. Why? Why? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Um, so I'm kind of embarrassed to talk about it. um, so I stood up and I slapped his face. Well, so this was at night, and we had had our sixth my sixth child. Adrian was 2 months at the time, and all the kids were in bed sleeping. This was at night, and that's another reason why I just love having children, but he was too stressed and too overwhelmed with everything. I was bringing in over $1,000 in food stamps, and he was working full time, and um, he hated working full time at the job that he was at, like the factory job. Um, but I just thought everything was fine, and I loved the joy of children, and I was excited to have Adrian, but um, I guess he wasn't, um, because to this day only has he only has a connection with David Justice, not his other three sons. He doesn't care for him like he does David Justice. Um, I slapped him, and he went out to the car, and I was like, "Babe, come back inside, please. We'll figure this out in the morning." And then he went to the garage and was like sleeping on a chair in the garage. I'm like, "This is so ridiculous. Just come on inside and we'll figure things out in the morning." And um, eventually, I just gave up and went back to bed. And in the morning, he calls the police, and he told them that I punched him in the face. Well, I didn't know my rights then, and now I know I could have, because they went outside, I could have just shut my door and not opened it for the police and just not said anything. But I, I thought I had to say something. I thought I had to give a statement. I didn't give a whole truth because I was super embarrassed about the police coming into my marriage. I felt really weird about it. It didn't feel right. It felt really, really wrong. And I didn't understand why he even called the cops to begin with. And so um, they charged me with domestic violence. And because they saw I had just gotten done breastfeeding Adrian, they charged me also with domestic violence in front of a child, which is child abuse. And so I called my dad at this point, and he came and got all six children, and he told me that I could have them back whenever I asked for them. Well, all I focused on was reconciling with Ailey and trying to fix this marriage that I thought had to be fixed, had to be reconciled, and so all my efforts went into this. I didn't know what I know now, and that is God doesn't want or desire any of his daughters to ever be abused. not in any kind of way. And I kept going back to Ailey's abuse. He, I don't know how this happened. Somehow I got kicked out of that home that he got us, and I wasn't getting my mail. I couldn't get my mail, and he had um, gone gone behind my back and gotten a protective order against me that I didn't know about. Well, then he was also getting back with me and telling me we're gonna get the kids and telling me we're gonna get back together and everything was gonna be fine. And I remember I got dressed up way cute and went to his uncle's house. And as soon as I walked in the back door, and he threw me down to the ground and started assaulting me, started hitting me, and I was screaming, and he had called the cops, and he was telling them that I was assaulting him. Well, when the cops came over, they arrested me and took me to jail because I was breaking a protective order that I didn't know I had against me. And so that was as the beginning of this. I got out of there and still went back to Ailey, and we I got a job waitressing, and we were making things work for the time, and we actually had went and gotten um, Nathan, David Justice, and Adrian. So we had the three boys. And for this time, this short little time that I could just raise my sons and go to work and raise my sons, it was I thought it was okay. I thought everything was going to be just fine. Um, the last fight that we got in was I was sitting on the edge of the bed like this, and he was like up against the wall, up on the bed, and I was done like playing with the kids or something, and so I scooted up, and he was on a laptop, and I was just like scooted up next to him, like, hey, like what's going on? Just to hang out with my husband and just see what's going on. Um, well, he starts deleting things, and I was like, now what's really going on? And he was like, see, I can just delete things whenever I want. And he knew that previously he had left his email open and there were online dating things, and so I was like, oh, okay, like that's how you think, you know, that's all right in a marriage. And so that started a huge fight. I told him I thought I might have been pregnant again, and he roundhouse kicked me to the uterus, and I went flying across the room. He bashed my head in, probably like about half a dozen times on either side, and I don't know why. I would fall to the ground and then just stand up again and just let him do it, like over and over and over and over again. Um, those bruises didn't show up until the following day. Um, I also had bruises on my arm, all up and down right here. He was wearing a one of those rubbery plastic bracelets that have writing on it, indented writing on it, and I had an impression that said "kids" with a Z. Um, it was like the reverse from him striking me and from me protecting myself. He had used a little paring knife to open a door that I went in, a room that I went to in the basement to hide from him, and he opened it and started assaulting me. Um, then later he taken our son David Justice and was in another room. Well, I took that knife to try to open that door. Well, he had rigged the door so there was like the lock, and then it was broken on the top and on the bottom, and he was making threats against our son, and he knew he knew I would break this door down. He rigged it so I would break it down, and he filmed me doing it because it would he was making threats, and it was so easy. Like, it wasn't working with the I tried unlocking with a knife, but it wasn't working, and so um like I would just kick that door in because he was making threats against my son, and I was like, you need to leave our son out of this. Seriously, this is ridiculous. You shouldn't be hiding with him in a bedroom. And he saw that I had that knife, and he was like, oh, are you gonna kill me? And I was like, held the knife up, and I was like, that's dumb. And I put it on top of the bunk bed. There was a pink fuzzy blanket, and I put the knife on top. And I stepped back and I said, you know, I don't know, what was said after, but somehow I got David Justice put back in his bed, and I was like, why were you getting him up in the middle of the night? Like, that's so dumb. Um, and I can't remember. Oh, it was after that he was punching my head in, and so there's that happened after. And he did that in front of David Justice. Um, and that's after that I called the cops, and I'm the one who called the cops. I was really scared to call the cops because previously they hadn't protected or served me in any way. Um, and so they came over, and I was calmly telling them what had happened. Well, he had turned into like this actor, and he was like, I'm making all these things up, and was up and down and like exaggerating everything, and just I was like watching him. I was just like, wow, he just turned into an actor. And the police brought up that knife, and they're like, oh, let's bag this for evidence. There's fibers on it. I was like, I didn't say nothing. I was just sitting there watching all this take place, and I was like thinking, all right, I know those fibers match that fuzzy blanket. They're gonna take that for evidence. Then why don't they take his shirt or his pants, or there's no stab wounds on him anywhere, or um, no fibers were ever broken on anything that he was wearing. I was like, this is so dumb. They told me that they were taking me to jail because of that knife. They told me they were taking me to jail because they couldn't see bruises on my head that showed up the next day, and the bruises on that were on my arm. They said I did that to myself, and because of that video that he had, and so that's why I was taken to jail. This time I was there for a Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and my birthday, and I got out because he came and talked to the DA and convinced them to let me go back to to living with him. That he would um, uh, let me stay in the house, and I would had to go through probation and take a MRT. It was a moral reasoning class or something. Well, um, as soon as I got released, I got pregnant with our third son, and I was going through this probation, and I met a man that I had an affair with, and I, this is my story, so I'm not ashamed of anything. Um, I believe we're all adulterers, and I I'm a faithful woman. I want to be faithful to a man who wants to be faithful to me. And I've never experienced that. Um, and so I wanted to see if I wanted to be with my husband still, and I thought I did. I told him after this affair had ended and this guy had moved out of the state. I was I told Ailey about it and um, told him I still wanted to work on things and I still wanted to save our family, and he told me he wanted the same things too, that he was going that we were going to work things out, and I believed him, and um, we had Joachim, my seventh child, and our third son together, and he was still really distant, and a week before he moved out, he told me that he was telling me still he was going to man up, that I was right in in the things that I wanted, and he was wrong for he was acting immature and acting like a child. He told me these things, that he wasn't manning up, that he was still wanting to be a boy. Well, after 3 weeks, after 3 weeks of having Joey, he he just left. He said, "I'm leaving," and I begged. Ladies, don't beg. It's so unclean. He, I begged. I tried everything to make him stay, like I did before, and trying to make that puzzle piece fit. It's just not going to. Um, um, I stayed in that house as long as I could. It's about 2 months, and until the sheriff came, and um, I had 3 friends help me take everything out, most everything out, and um, I tried to get the Mormons to help me move my things, and at first they wouldn't, but then I went back and to one of their leaders, I was like, you guys are supposed to be like a Christian example, and I'm in desperate need, and nobody's helping me. And he looks me in the eye, and he's like, you should have like gotten like paid for a mover, and I was like, oh, you're right, I should have. I had no money at the time. I had nothing. Um, they they knew that. That's why they were supposed to be helping me. Ailey left, and he didn't pay any kind of money to me until I went through ORS, Office of Recovery Service, to get child support. Um, so essentially, he left me and his child homeless. I I begged him. He changed his number. I begged him to take us with him. He's living with some other woman, um, and you know, good for him. Um, so I essentially made the Mormons help me. They moved most of my stuff to a place that um, a, a, where the Mormons were paying. They paid for me to live in an apartment for 2 months, and I just got tired of going. In order for them to do that, I had to go to church every Sunday, and they know I don't believe Joseph Smith's testimony, um, and so it was always they don't want to help me, but I'm just like telling them they're my only option, and so they eventually caved in. Um, but after 2 months, I couldn't take that anymore living in Utah, and so I came out here to Missouri, where I am now, and my parents, this is a farmhouse they live in, and then literally down the driveway there's a huge house that my 2 brothers and their wives, they each have a son, and then my 7 children live live down there. So I came out here to Missouri, and Joey was 4 months, and um, I'm a really, really good mother. At 1 month, this child weaned himself. Most of my kids breastfeed longer, but he he was like, I'm done with that, and he's like, I want some solid food. So that kid is just solid, strong, never been sick. None of my kids, ever since I came to Christ, none of my kids have ever gotten sick. I keep my house clean. I disinfect toys. I My special mixture is water, Dawn, and bleach, and I make sure I get doorknobs, light switches, any surface that any person touches. Um, I'm always keeping my children's hands and faces clean. Never use a dirty dishcloth on your children's faces. I've seen that done too many times. Nasty. Um, so, my kids have never gotten sick. Well, I drop him off, and my parents won't take me in because of the whole Mormon thing. And I just couldn't stand to talk to my son about his brothers and sisters and him not experience being with his siblings. I really believed that they shouldn't be separated, and I couldn't be a single mom of one. I'm a mother of seven, and I want all of them to stay together. I want to raise them all together. But my parents wouldn't let me stay here, and my dad was like, "Well, there's shelters," and so I went out to Columbia and and got a job. I barely made like $100 in a week. It was too much work for too little pay. And Missouri is misery, like an angry ocean always on top of you, and the cold is just bone cutting cold. I hate it here. It's really miserable. Why else would it be called Missouri? I don't know. It's too similar. I hate it. Um, I would never choose to live here, but I'm here because my parents are here with my kids. So um, I came down here to see the kids at Easter. It was um, a week. I suffered a week in that shelter, and that job was horrendous. And so I came to see the kids, and they wouldn't let me see anyone but Joey. And my brother and my dad were just like hovering over me, and they were just like, yeah, you can only see him for like 10 minutes. Well, I know Joey was mad at me. He was mad. He was sick. His nose was running. He'd never been sick before. I knew he was just like, Mom, why did you leave me with these people? And I was just like, holding him, I'm just like, I'm sorry, baby, but I need you to be with your brothers and sisters. You deserve to be with your brothers and sisters. Some kind of Mormon thing came up, and I gave Joey back to my brother and um, left left mad. Um, my dad is always like, repent, repent, repent. Well, repentance to him is coming back to the Mormon religion. He tells me that his beliefs will save me. No, I tell him you're wrong. Jesus Christ saves me. Um, I went to Colorado because that's where I grew up. I feel most at home there, and pot is legal there, and I love I love smoking weed. It's fun. I love being high. I serve the Most High God, and it's natural. It's a plant. It's an herb, and it's healing. It heals me. I know it does. It inspires me. It motivates me. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It grows all over the planet. Why would God put that on the planet and people, who, what person put themselves in authority to say that, you can't have you can't have something. You can't put this on your body. You can't put this in your body. Who puts that authority on themselves? Um, I went to this place called Pagosa Springs, and it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful there. I love Pagosa Springs. They have the Guinness World Book Records for the deepest springs in the world, and they call them the healing waters. And it's really nice. They have a bunch of hot tubs all over the place, and they're different temperatures. And I would just go. I would use it as its bathhouse. Um, go in. I was living out of my car. They don't have any shelters there. I was living out of my car. I got a part-time job at Subway, so I had some food, and I would bathe at this bathhouse. Well, on the last day of my pass, I met my last boyfriend, and I my standards now. I won't live with a man. I won't I won't even let a man kiss me until he actually marries me and we say I do. Those are my standards now. But um, I had went to Christian churches all over wherever I could and had asked for help, and I was denied help wherever I went by Christian churches. Um, this man said that he had property, that he was a pot farmer, and that he had property on the mountain, up on the mountain, and um, I went and I gave him complete control of me because I thought that was an ideal woman, was like completely submitting herself and everything, her whole soul to her mate. Well, he completely abused all his power. He's in the Florida prison right now for battery. I couldn't call the cops when I was in Colorado because they couldn't have gotten to me in time. I would have been dead before they ever reached me. I tried escaping a few times, but I had nowhere to go. I couldn't tell my dad, and Robert, his name was Robert, he even said this. He said, I know your dad doesn't even care about you. I can kill you and bury you in Shorty's court, and no one is gonna find you ever, and no one ain't even gonna care to look for you. That's what he told me. I believed him. This man has taken a gun to me, a knife to me, a belt to me, a cane to me. He's thrown glass at me. He's thrown everything you can think of at me. He's been. I couldn't go anywhere for almost 2 months because a black he my oh my eye was so disgusting. He gave me the worst black eye. Um, I had choke marks, scratch marks. Um, always um, always messing up my face. And for super trivial things, not just not 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 for any good reason. There's no good reason for abuse. No good reason for abuse, and um, no woman has to fix a man or save a man. Um, so I waited until I could call the cops, and we couldn't stay up in on the mountain, and he he wanted to. He did everything to try to stay up there, but God knew my heart. I was pleading to get away from the mountain, get away from him, but really to get away from the mountain because I couldn't take this anymore. And with $120, we got from Colorado to Florida. It's an absolute miracle. We went through San Antonio. We went through Texas, 2 pounds. We went through the canines with 2 pounds of weed. We went through the tail end of Hurricane. This um, this guy. So I had to the the truck was really bad. The defrost wasn't working. I had to wipe down. The inside kept fogging up and forming condensation, and he would like backhand me if I fell asleep. So I wasn't allowed. I had to stay up with him while he was driving, and then when he got tired, I had to drive. This is essentially how it was living with him. I had to serve him from the moment he woke up. If I didn't have coffee ready for him, he would beat me up. Um, to the moment he went to bed, which could have been at any hour because he's psychotic and he doesn't sleep. Um, so somehow we make it to Florida, and we're in a like a camping place, but it's so swampy there. The bugs are just horrendous, and I have allergic reactions to the fire ants and the mosquitoes and the sand fleas. It's been over a month. It's been almost 2 months, and I'm still suffering from these sand fleas. They're worse than chicken pox, really, really bad. Well, the um, what happened was there was some neighbors, some kids, essentially camping next to us that had helped us sell sell our stuff, and we got on really, really great with them. They're like 20, 26, 23, and then his brother was 18, and then he had the 18-year-old had a 16-year-old girlfriend, and then um, the 23-year-old girl, like her brothers and stuff would come by. So we'd all have campfires and hang out and stuff. And um, then we got us into a house because these bugs were attacking us so badly, me specifically. And so he got us, Robert put us in a house, but it didn't have electricity or running water, and so it was still really, really bad. It was in a really horrible part of town where Haitians are known to pick, kidnap white women and chain them to beds and literally tear them new assholes. This is what this guy was telling us who lived there. He actually knew a woman who went through this, and they had to take skin from her calf and make her a new asshole. I was like, this is where you put me. This is where you you taking us to a place like this. I was just horrified. Um, um, well, he he was he got drunk, and whenever he gets drunk, especially on rum, he just completely well, still violent, but he just is like even more violent and just like demands things, demands illegal things, stealing things. If I didn't steal things, if I spent money, he would beat me up. If I didn't. So this is I wouldn't have sex with the 23-year-old girl who's my friend. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'm not attracted to females in this way. Um, and so, but he let that go, and then he invited this 16-year-old girl named Alex into our room, and I thought, like she thought, that we are just gonna smoke a bowl. Well, he shuts the door and he says, "Okay, let's fuck," and I was just like, "What? Excuse me?" It's like this girl is like a daughter to me, and she was like, I have a boyfriend. I'm like, and she has a boyfriend. I was like, this is so wrong, and she excused herself, and um, I said, "You're disgusting," and he smacked my face, and he says, "Say it again," and I didn't, but then he came at me uh, with a hook and got my jaw, and I went flying off the chair, and I screamed, and pain and grabbed the phone and I went to the bathroom and he he started to beat down the bathroom and I called my dad and I was too scared to call the cops because what happened with my last husband and I called my dad and he didn't answer. Typical, he never answered for me and so I left messages and then I dialed 911 because the door was coming down and the 26-year-old guy pulls him out and starts fighting him in the hallway. He got him pretty good. I'm so proud of him. I was just telling him thank yous over and over because nobody's ever stood up for me before. And Robert was bleeding, and I went outside and waited for the cops. Well, Robert ran away, and I went back inside the house and just so I had the truck key because I wanted to make sure I had that so I could drive away and I didn't want him to take off and so I turn around and he goes I saw him there and he's like naked and he's just like gushing blood and he was like you stupid cunt bitch. He called me a stupid cunt bitch almost every day I can think of and I was just horrified that he was back in the house and why weren't the police making sure like who went in and out. I ran outside and screamed he's inside. Well, they still like were hunting him down for like an hour. He finally um, he finally came back and so his charges were there was two charges of battery and then charge for um, resisting arrest, but really I should have been brave and said that this was actually a sex crime because he was demanding to have sex with a 16-year-old girl. Um, but I was too scared, so I just said the bare minimum and came back here to Missouri because where else am I gonna go? Um, my brother won't let me see my children. Just yesterday, I was able to see my four kids for just an hour or two, just a little bit of time, just like about 2 hours. Um, and I still haven't seen my last three sons. This is what's been going on in my life, and I know I'm in a huge transition right now. I'm really, really done with any sort of abuse. I don't know where I belong in this world. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I know right now I physically can't raise my kids. I don't have a place. I don't have my own place. Um, and that's it. I'm just doing my work. I'm an artist and a writer, so I work on that every day and try to keep positive. Um, it, my license was stolen, so I just got my license back. You know, I had to get my birth certificate and my license, and so now I have that. But my truck was confiscated by the Missouri police. It was in Robert's name, and then he put it in my name, like the sales slip. But the place that we got it from, the place is really janky, and they don't have like a title for it. So I was pulled over at this like Missouri police are super suspicious and super super weird. I've only met one Officer Walker who was down to earth, lovely man. but they are all miserable like this state. Um, and they were so I started off in at the Harmony House shelter, and what happened there was um, I had a grievance, and they wouldn't hear my grievance. What they say that their place is a safe place, um, but you have to have your window down, and you have to press like a button, and you have to honk on your horn to have them let you in through this gate to go park in the back. And for 3 nights in a row, I was laying on my horn, pressing this button for 10 plus minutes. And there's this crackhead walking behind me the whole time, back and forth. And I know this is not safe. That person could pull me out. That person could have a weapon. I should be let in there right away. That was one of my grievances. Um, um, I had a few other things that me and my roommate had come up with, and I wanted to present this to the Harmony House to help them have harmony in their house because there wasn't harmony. And so I had suggestions and things to make this place better. And even the night before, I had spent all night deep cleaning their kitchen. It was so gross. Um, from ceiling to bottom, I did my, Mama Special mixture, and I deep cleaned this whole place. And she was the director's like this child who I don't believe has even experienced any sort of abuse, and they put this child and um, in charge, and she got offensive with me right away, and she wouldn't hear the things that I had to say. Instead, she started arguing with me, and I told her, I don't feel safe at all. I feel like I should have the police here. Well, when the police got there, they said, this just sounds like miscommunication. And I said, yep. And they asked me, and so they initially she was going to give me 2 days to get out. And I was like, I'm homeless. I have nowhere else to go. Where am I supposed to go? I was like, why can't she just listen to these things and help make this place a better place? Like, I'm not trying to hurt anyone, you know. Um, why are you trying to hurt me? I'm already hurting. Why are you trying to hurt me more? And the instead of 2 days after the police came, they said, well, now you need to get out now. And so I packed my things, and then they're like, where's your identification? And I said, it's stolen. And then they said, well, what's your name? So I gave them my names, um, and like the last names that I've had, and they can't find me in the system, in their system. And they they kept asking stupid questions, and I was like just telling them the same things over because that's all. I'm like, this is my information. And after like an hour, they they found um, my license or something, but it took a long time. And then they arrested me on providing false information, which was such a joke. So then they put me in the squad car, and that's where I met Officer Walker. And I told him my story, and he was so sweet to have a heart for me, and really, really just say, you've been through the wars, and um, that has been injustice that I've experienced. Injustice. And Um, he said I sounded, because, with everything with my Mormon family, it was so nice to hear a man in his position tell me that I was the sharp woman with a good head on my shoulders, because my own father tells me, he even says to my face that I don't have a beautiful soul, and I say, how can you even say that to your own child? I would never say that to any of my children. All my children have beautiful souls, and that's all I would ever tell them. Well, they were threatening me to keep me in jail for 5 days, and I threw the world's greatest tantrum ever. Um, I cried like all the aborted fetuses in the world, and they had me. I was released within 5 hours and not 5 days. Um, I sang, I cried, I begged for mercy and for justice. I was like, look at me, I don't belong here. I provided true information, and this is what you do. This is how you treat an American woman. I'm just a poor little woman, and this is how you treat me. Um, um, I was like, they even had a doctor come in because I was like, get Daddy Trump on the line. I was like, Trump needs to see this because Officer Walker was saying, he was like, uh, because he heard my stance on weed, and um, he was like, you should smoke a doobie with Donald Trump. He should hear your story. And so I was saying, get Daddy Trump on the line. He needs to know what's going on. And then they had their doctor come in, and she was like, so they have this doctor and like three huge guys behind her, like I'm going to attack them. They made me sit in the corner. she's like, um, she's like, why'd you bring up Donald Trump? He's kind of a big deal. And I'm like, I'm kind of a big deal. And she's like, why are you kind of a big deal? And I'm like, well, I'm Jesus's favorite daughter. And she's like, but how do you know? How do you know that? And I'm like, that's my faith. It's mine. You can't take it away from me. It's mine. And they released me. And then um, and then I was here waiting for my dad, because he still wasn't. I had nowhere to go, no shelter to go. I was here in Bolivar, and I was parked in between some fields. It was just like a little dirt road, and there's some concrete barriers on the end. And then I was sitting there for an hour waiting for my dad to text me or call me. He said he was in surgery. I didn't know where I was staying. I was so tired of sleeping in that truck, and then there's these headlights on me, like on up the street for like half an hour. It's so dumb. So I leave eventually, and then the cop pulls me over, and he's like, "Where did you come from?" And I was like, so confused. I was like, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Where did you come from? Where you just were? You weren't supposed to be there." And I was like, what are you talking about? Where I was parked? And he was like, yes, you weren't supposed to be there. And I was like, what do you mean? There's no trespassing signs or nothing. Like, I don't get it. So anyway, long story short, for that I had to spend the night in jail again, and they released me. But then they impounded my car, and um, so now I was forced to be here with my parents, but they still aren't letting me see the kids. It's been really heartbreaking, and I think tomorrow morning I have to walk over to the courthouse and try to figure out how to get a court order to see my kids. So that's my plan. Where to go from here, I don't know. I don't belong here. I don't feel like I belong here. And I really, really wanted to be with my soulmate. Genesis 3:16 says that the woman's desire is all for her husband, and that's really how I feel. I really wish that I was with my best friend and that I didn't have to go through this alone. Um, just to have, someone there saying it's all right, it's your family, keep loving them. That's all I wanted. Um, with this, I think it's gonna pass over eventually because they're my kids. It doesn't bother me that my brother is raising them now because I can't physically do it. I don't have a means to. I don't know why my dad would let him and not me. It's just basically it's the Mormon thing, but they won't admit to that. Um, but they have essentially brainwashed my kids because they're all baptized and they still when I was talking to them just yesterday they take things I say and they don't hear it right. They don't hear how I say it. So there's not effective communication because there can't be. It's like trying to reason. It's like trying to tell a blind person what what a color is, and it's not working. Um, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to move this mountain, and I don't know where to go. And so those are the prayers I need. This is my testimony. This is what I know. I know that the blood of Jesus saves me, and He's all I need, and He's all I've got right now. I really feel that I've been so disappointed in the body of Christ. I I'm ashamed to be an American woman. I'm really ashamed to be an American. I'm disgusted in our country. We don't protect our own. We don't protect our women and children. This system has failed me from the beginning. Um, I don't know how to continue to pursue justice anymore. I don't know why my parents, my brother, and my parents' statements weren't enough on behalf of Katie. Um, and right now, that's everything. I think Christmas should be every day and not just celebrated on one day every year. That baby is just another baby without the cross, and love is giving and forgiving. And if we don't practice those two things every day, then how do we have a right to call ourselves Christian? Thank you for your prayers and grace be with you. Thank you for listening to me.